seminar series. It's a pleasure today to introduce to you Professor David Mayers. He's a professor of psychology at Hope College. He got his graduate program degree at the University of Iowa, and he's written numerous books in psychology, in the field of psychology. Among them, a book titled "A Quiet World: Living with Hearing Loss." He's a prominent figure in the United States, advocating new technologies for hearing impaired. Last May, there was an article in the New York Times where some technology article that some work of Rahul Shabstakar, this is a fellow that we had in the seminar since last year, on his new device for hearing aid, and so I was called to say a few words about it, and he saw my name in the article, and then he called me out and he says, "Oh, that sounds like you guys and Rahul are doing some interesting things in new technologies for hearing and devices, and so why don't we try to connect and talk about it and see if there is some possibilities for future, making these technologies available to more people." So we agreed that come and give a seminar, and that's why he's here today. And he's going to tell us about some of his ideas about new technologies and how to make them happen.
Before I start, I want to just introduce, in case any of you would like to meet afterwards, two friends of mine who showed up here today from Self-Help for Hard of Hearing People, whose brochure I just handed out. That is the National Organization of Hard of Hearing Persons located in Bethesda, Maryland. They produce many resources that support people with hearing loss in the United States, including a magazine, Hearing Loss. And my friends are Dana Mulvaney, who's their technology coordinator, and Terry Portis, who's their executive director. So if any of you have interest in exploring larger issues related to hearing loss, these two people are two very key people in the United States for those with hearing loss. Let me also just say it's been a mind-stretching experience for me to be here today. I am not a computer scientist, I am not an engineer, and I've had my mind stretched as I've interacted with you all today. But I've also found points of kind of personal contact. Some of you are interested in speech translation across languages, and I happen to have a nephew who's in the business of translating manuals to other languages from Microsoft and is very, watching this technology with interest. I have a nephew, I realize, native of India, who took his PhD in one of these buildings related to computing engineering, and I can hardly wait to ask him which one it was and where I was. It was a pleasure for me to talk with Fred Jelnick about speech recognition software and his pioneering role, and to be able to tell him how my mother, who spent the last dozen years of her life completely deaf, benefited from speech recognition software that we outfitted my father with to enable him to speak to her and have his words displayed on a screen that she could read. And I think the whole avenue of speech translation, the application of speech translation software, particularly now that it's becoming capable to do this with continuous speech and with greater speech recognition more quickly, holds tremendous possibilities for deaf America, particularly people who are not native signers. 2/3 of deaf people in the United States are like my mother, people who are deafened later in life and whose only language is their native language, namely English. So it's been great fun to kind of think about all these things and these special people to me. What I told Andrea that I was intrigued by was the concept that some of the technology that's being explored here, ultra low power radio frequency, ultra wideband technology, might be applicable to a future generation of assistive listening devices. I think assistive listening for the 28 million Americans with hearing loss in the United States today is about where home lighting was just before the time of Thomas Edison. We don't do a very good job of it, but there's technology that can enable some pretty exciting things. And I think potentially doubling the functionality of hearing aids by enabling them to serve not only as sophisticated microphone amplifiers and signal processors, but also as in-the-ear customized loudspeakers for the transmission of sound from PA systems, telephones, televisions, airport gate areas such as what I'm going to be in another hour or so, you name it. And if that could be done on a wide scale, it would have revolutionary implications for hearing technology use. Only about 25% or so of people with hearing loss use hearing technology, use hearing aids. If hearing aids could become doubly useful in ways I'll describe, surely the usage of hearing aids would greatly increase. Fewer of them would be returned to audiologists or left in the top drawer of the dresser. And as more people came to use and appreciate and spread the word around about available hearing technologies, the stigma of hearing loss would diminish, and support for insurance and Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement for the purchase of hearing technology would surely increase in the constituency that would be wanting that. The net bottom line could be a tremendous increase in quality of life for millions of Americans and potentially many tens of millions of people elsewhere with significant hearing loss. So here's my story, but I speak as a consumer, not as a technologist. And so I'm advocating for you. I'm representing the end user of some of the technologies that you're exploring. And I'm trying to be your cheerleader to cheer you on and encourage you in the work you're doing and let you know that there's people like us and like Dana and like Terry's wife, Denise, who could benefit from this. First, let me say that there's a fast-growing need for hearing technology in the United States that's related to two facts. One, the over 55 population in the United States is dramatically increasing, and in fact is going to approximately double over the next 30 years. Combined with that is the well-known fact that hearing loss accelerates rapidly and is much more common amongst older Americans. Well, you put that together with that, and that alone tells you that the population of people needing hearing assistance is going to dramatically increase over the next 30 years. In addition, we have the accumulating effects of toxic noise from boom boxes, headsets, power tools, blow dryers, and so forth, taking their cumulative toll on hearing. And the net effect is for an increased need for hearing technology, such as what I'm encouraging you all to think about.
Now, this is 6% of the over 55 population, right? Or
this
8%?
is, well, yes.
8% of what?
This percent here is the percent of people who cannot hear and understand normal speech.
Percent of United States population?
Yes, 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 according to age. Excuse me. So if we go 45 to 64-year-olds, that's 2%. If we go up to people over 65 years of age without hearing assistance, 10% have trouble understanding normal speech.
And that's now?
Well, that's when this was done, a National Health Service survey. That was several years ago. It's never now, of course.
I mean, it's not in the future. It's
right. Oh, no, no, no. This is not a projection. This is what they found from. Now, what I'm going to tell you about is there is an available hearing technology that is becoming very prominent in other countries, although for the most part unknown here in the United States. And this does a wonderful job, and maybe it's the answer, but if you've got a better idea, I'm all for it. And what it does is it harnesses what's called a telecoil, sometimes also called an audio coil, which is a simple coil of copper wire that fits in a hearing aid. In the United States today, about 50% of hearing aids have this telecoil receptor that I'll explain in a moment. It comes in nearly all behind-the-ear hearing aids, which are about 23% of hearing aids sold. It comes in many in-the-ear hearing aids, such as what I'm wearing, which are nearly 2/3 of all hearing aids sold. And it does not come in the miniaturized, cosmetically preferable, completely in the canal aids, but those are only about 1 in 6 hearing aids sold. There's a survey just being completed by Ohio State that will give us a better figure. It used to be said that about 30% of hearing aids come with this technology. The CEO of the second largest manufacturer in the United States has told me that 80% of their hearing aids are now coming with this little telecoil receptor. In the United Kingdom, something like 90% of hearing aids, including all of those distributed by the National Health Service, which is where most people get their hearing aids, come with a telecoil receptor. Those are some pictures of different telecoils manufactured by Tibbetts, which is one of the prime manufacturers of telecoils, which is engineering a future generation of telecoils as well. They're called telecoils partly because they're telephone compatible. Let me back up. Most telephones in the United States emit not only sound but a magnetic signal that can be received by the telecoil and can process that sound and produce clearer, stronger sound than might otherwise be possible. So when I was picked up at the hotel this morning, when my phone rang in the room, I immediately just tapped the button to turn on the telecoil so I could get the clearest possible reception from Gideon on the telephone as we talked. And for that reason alone, Mark Ross, in the current issue of Terry and Dana's organization's magazine, Hearing Loss, Mark Ross being one of the most prominent audiological researcher writers in the United States and a consultant to the U.S. Access Board, has said that T-coils should now be routinely included in hearing aids. Their potential advantages are immense. And the advantage includes not only telephone reception, but also what are called induction loop systems. They're magnetic systems that simply attach to any sound source. Could be a telephone, a television, most commonly a PA system. And from that amplifier, there runs a wire that encircles the audience. And to put it in the simplest of terms, if you sit inside that wire, that magnetic signal is sensed by the telecoil if it's in an operational mode, and it transmits. Basically, it turns the hearing aids into in-the-ear loudspeakers. I didn't know.
So getting the sound from the regular sound cluster? Or
Exactly.
Turn off the regular sound? Turn off the regular sound wave.
Well, you can do. Okay, my hearing aids have regular sound microphone. They have telecoil mode, and they have both mixed, so I can get both microphone plus telecoil simultaneously. So mine at worship, for example, or even when I'm watching TV with my wife in the room, I'll often have both on. So I get the TV sound broadcast here, but I can also hear her voice through the microphone. My first experience with this, I'd never heard of this technology 5 years ago, but I was worshiping at the Iona Abbey off the west coast of Scotland. It's one of those places where sound bounces from a loudspeaker around a lot before it gets to me, and it's basically indecipherable by the voice by the time it gets to me. But then my wife noticed that there was this universal symbol of hearing access with a little T. That's a sign you now see all over the United Kingdom. And so she nudged me to activate the telecoils, which I've been told came in the hearing aids. I didn't ask for them. They're a very inexpensive part. It's not a cost factor. And it was like going from a rough gravel road onto smooth pavement. I mean, I was practically in tears at the clarity of the sound of the person as if they were speaking from the inside of my head. Subsequently, traveling in the United Kingdom, where we sojourn periodically, I found this technology in local churches, in the auditorium and seminar rooms of the Royal Society of Edinburgh, where I was for a conference, in various cathedrals, symphony halls, such as at the University of St. Andrews, all the major cathedrals, including Canterbury Cathedral, Westminster Abbey. If you were there for the 50th anniversary celebration of the Queen's coronation last spring, the very first page of the program announced that the whole of the Abbey is served by a hearing loop. Simply turn on your hearing aid to the T setting. And if you're a British hearing aid wearer, you know what that means. It's also now appearing more and more, I find, as I return to the United Kingdom, in various transient venues where no other assistive listening is conceivable. And I'm thinking, like, this is a bank teller window at the place where I bank in St. Andrews. And again, that little T sign tells me that her voice will broadcast through my hearing aids if I just activate the hearing aid. This is another bank. This is a designated post office window. The clerk is behind glass, so she's hard to hear. But if the listener simply taps her hearing aid, then her voice will be broadcast through the in-the-ear loudspeakers. At a tourist information counter on the Isle of Mull. These are just kind of various venues. They're now showing up at train station windows. And again, that tells you that the person behind glass, that sound will broadcast through your ear directly. all London taxis are in the process of having their back seats looped so that the person in the front seat can talk to you through your hearing aids. All London Underground ticket station windows, ticket kiosks, are in the process of being looped in order to broadcast this wireless sound to people's in-the-ear loudspeakers. I'm going to speak in a moment about how we're bringing this technology to my community. Rochester, New York, Terry Portis has just been telling me, is another community where this technology is widely applied. But here, for example, is a drive-up window of one of our local banks, which means that if this happens to be my bank, that the teller back here, when she talks, her voice is broadcast not by a speaker several feet away, but from the hearing aids right inside my ear. In the United Kingdom, there's actually an act that dictates that any business or organization providing a product or service to the general public must have one of these systems in place by the end of 2004, wherever information is verbally provided. And it's not only the United Kingdom. In Denmark, for example, the president of a church-assisted listening organization told me that here we can just install a good loop system in a theater or church building or meeting room, and we do. Our churches are virtually 100% equipped with this now throughout Denmark, and asked the hard of hearing attendees to switch to the T position. The head of audiological services for Australia tells me this is becoming absolutely uniform and ubiquitous throughout Australia as well. In the United States, we have gone a different route. We have used primarily infrared and FM systems that require you to check out a portable receiver. They're hearing aid incompatible, so you have to take out your hearing aids usually, and then you put on a headset. The net result is that very few people use them. They're mostly gathering dust, their batteries dying in closets of theaters, and I've sometimes found staff where they're actually there and available, not even knowing that they had them because they're so seldom requested. And that's why I think, why my opening remark was, I think we're, with regard to assistive listening, where home lighting was before Edison. Moreover, they're producing generic sound. They're just producing louder sound. But we have different hearing losses. Here's my audiogram. I have an unusual low frequency loss. This is a more typical high frequency loss. Well, I want a different sound broadcast to me than this person wants broadcast to her. And our own hearing aids are engineered to do that. They're programmed to produce exactly what we need. So why not harness the technology of one's own, often digital hearing aid when broadcasting that sound, which is what can happen if we broadcast sound directly to through the in-the-ear loudspeakers. So, to summarize what I've said so far, it seems to me that unlike the existing systems that require these headsets, which by the way are also available with magnetic loop systems for people who are not equipped with telecoils, so they can serve 100% of people. But unlike the alternative systems, a system that broadcasts directly to hearing aids, be it today's loop system, this is the engineering and refinement of this technology is advanced over a half century ago, but the technology, as many of you know, is not brand new. Or be it the kind of thing that Andrea and I were talking about today, is alternative technologies. Some system that broadcasts directly to hearing aids, it doesn't require you to locate and pick up, check out, and return an assistive listening equipment. Therefore, if you're the church or theater or whatever, you don't have to maintain so many of these units. That is, if you install a system that broadcasts to hearing aids, then you don't have to buy at $150 a pop this equipment. They could operate on a universal frequency that serves you wherever you go. I mean, the magnetic signal is the same wherever it's broadcast. It's inconspicuous. We hard of hearing people shouldn't be self-conscious about wearing hearing technology, but we are, and that's one reason why fewer people that should be using hearing technology use it. It can work in transit situations, such as what I've shown you, where nobody would ever check out at a bank teller window or an airport gate area technology to use. There's no hygienic concerns about sticking in your ear bacteria that have come from somebody else's ear. There hearing aid compatible. You don't have to take your hearing aids out in order to use the system because your hearing aid is the system. They allow flexible use, and as I indicated in response to Fred's question a moment ago, they allow you to listen either with a microphone or a telecoil broadcast or both. So you could have the microphone on at the same time as you have the telecoil on. They deliver personalized sound that's customized for your own hearing needs, and as a result, they're much more likely to be used and where installed to be increasingly used. And that's been our experience in West Michigan, as I'll explain in a moment. So imagine yourself as a person with hearing loss. Would you rather have to check out and use one of these systems? Or would you rather have the sound just broadcast by your own hearing aid? The answer is, if you take a survey, I think the answer is 99 to 1, if not 100 to 0 in how people will respond. Indeed, one person was saying, you know, we took a poll at our church about installing a system that would require headphones, and there was nobody was interested in it. And that's been my experience too in churches in various places. There might be one or two profoundly hard of hearing people that will use this. All the other hard of hearing people just won't use it. It's sometimes said that there are drawbacks. Half of hearing aid wearers can't use the system because they don't now have the telecoil, but that number is shrinking as the telecoil penetration seems to be increasing. Also, those most in need of hearing assistance are the very people most likely already to be equipped to use it. They're more likely to have behind-the-ear hearing aids, almost all of which come with the telecoil. Self-Help for Hard of Hearing People, which I mentioned a moment ago, surveyed its members on a web survey and found that 75% are equipped to use the technology right now. And with portable receivers, the system can serve everybody, whether they have a telecoil or not. Moreover, think about this. How's this, you know, we have kind of a chicken and egg problem. Well, if somebody says, I don't want to install this equipment because not everybody could use it in this fashion immediately, well, why can't they? Because not everybody has the technology. Well, why would you be motivated to get the technology if there was no use for it? And I like to think, you know, how did we get television? I mean, when people started sending out the first television signal, how many people had television sets? I mean, why would you buy a television set if there was no signal coming out? Well, somebody had to start. And if it was cool technology and it was built, it will catch on. And likewise with television, which increased 20-fold during the 1950s in market penetration. By the way, cochlear implants are now starting to come with telecoils. The Cochlear Corporation, which is one of the main suppliers, is now building in a telecoil receptor. And I've had some reports from people that are using this, and it's just wonderful assistive listening for people with cochlear implants as well as with hearing aids. There used to be some installation issues related to interference from old style fluorescent lighting, competition from magnetism sucking metal that's in a building, spill over to adjacent rooms if you're looping side-by-side rooms. But today's technology, the people that are installing this equipment tells me, has solved those problems. And I must say, in the dozens of installations of this in our community, there has not been a problem such as this that could not be solved by the people that were doing the technology installation. It costs a little more to install than does an FM or infrared system, but I maintain that if you have 5 to 10 times as many people using it, the cost per user is actually less, and that's the metric that should matter. In my church, for example, we had one person using the old system. We spent $2,000 before a grant that helped us buy it to install this equipment, and then today we have nobody choosing to use the old system, which is still on, but nobody uses it. And we have 10 people now receiving assistive listening, whereas one did before. And in the article that is out in this month's Hearing Loss magazine, I give you examples, you know, kind of anecdotes from other organizations. And the local audiologists are just loving this because now word of mouth is driving more people to get new hearing aids that can harness this technology that they can use where they are. And of course, in the long term, then, you don't need to purchase and maintain so many of these receivers. British churches and institutions, they don't have to pay $150 a unit for the portable receivers. So I thought, since I experienced this in another country, I thought this was so helpful. I just love this. Why not bring it to my community and see if there's any reason why it couldn't be implemented on a broad scale? And so I undertook the aim to make my community, Holland and adjacent Zeeland, Michigan, which is about 100,000 people, a model loop community, and hope that others might follow suit. And as a result of this initiative, most of the major churches of our community, most of the major educational facility, auditoriums and so forth, various public facilities, the Senior Citizen Center, the City Council chambers, the library auditorium, and various businesses, including funeral homes and banks and so forth, have had this technology installed. And now we even see, Dana and Terry will enjoy this, ads like from a local funeral home saying, come to us, because we've got a sound system, and many of the people coming for services at a funeral home will be older people, that will enable you to hear. And so it becomes a competitive marketing advantage for those that have installed it. Some people have put this into their homes, and loop systems can vary from whole house systems, such as what this person has. His whole house is loop. And so he can listen to music, to television, and so forth via it. His wife wears a wireless microphone that transmits to him through an amplifier, and he can be upstairs. And if he's got this on, and she calls him to come downstairs for dinner or whatever like that, I mean, she can call him from any place in the house through this wireless technology. I have it attached to my television. I have a little amplifier that simply plugs into the audio output jack of the television, and then there's a wire that runs from that, and I simply stapled it to the ceiling studs underneath the room, and I sit inside that circle. I mean, this took me all of 20 minutes to install, and it works just perfectly. The system, by the way, retails for about $300, and for as little as $200, you can now get a loop system that's the ultimately simple thing to install. It's just a little thin pad that slips under the cushion of your favorite seating place, and then when you sit on that, you get remarkably good sound. Denise Portis wrote a little testimony to her experience with such a system in an article that's attached to what I have here. So these are relatively inexpensive, very simple systems. I'm not sure this is the ultimate technology, but it's one technology, and it does the job of transforming hearing aids into wireless loudspeakers, doubling their functionality. And if it could be applied, this or some better technology, I don't care what the technology is, it's the functionality that I'm excited about. It could have tremendous implications for the well-being of hard of hearing people. By the way, I won't even, there is a little patch cord from Radio Shack that will patch telephone into a system like this too. So you can hear through two ears. And believe me, for a hard of hearing person, to hear the telephone with two ears rather than one is a tremendous advantage. Mark Ross, whom I referred to earlier, finished this article that's in this same issue by saying, as loops become more common, not just in large areas, but in smaller applications as well, such as in homes and offices, the advantages of having an assistive listening device receiver located in one's hearing aid will become more and more apparent. And as more and more hearing aids include telecoils, one can be certain that more and more loops will be installed in all kinds of locations. You're going to get a positive feedback loop here. Now, this system is yet hardly penetrated the United States. And I was talking to Andrea over lunch and in his lab afterwards. And I was saying, if there's a better technology for delivering information wirelessly to in-the-ear loudspeakers, one that could be more efficiently and inexpensively installed and more easily installed with excellent results and so forth, now's the time to roll this out in a big way. Yes?
Awesome. Really, this is about broadcasting the same thing to everybody. You could be.
Sure.
I mean,
but yes.
You're missing the individual.
Absolutely.
Ability to really send content to
Yeah.
individual.
Sure, and so people could wear them, you could have receivers just, I mean, there's some people that aren't hard of hearing that would like to hear better, or would like to hear music broadcast from inside their ear. So, yes?
The loop sounds wonderful, but I guess it assumes that your hearing aids work well, correct? So the question, I have two questions related. One is whether hearing aids work better in T-coil mode than normal mode. In your experience, I never tried it. And second, if it doesn't, what do you think is the future for those people with profound hearing loss that hearing aids don't
Yeah.
restore.
Yeah. If somebody is profoundly deaf and hearing aids can't meet their needs, then this isn't going to solve the problem. It's not going to make them not deaf. However, the advantage is always that when I'm in, like if we go back to that man who uses this at home, if his wife is there and he's here and he's listening to her across the distance, the speaker to listener distance, as that increases, it's like exponentially the clarity of the sound diminishes. And so if you can pick up the sound right close to her voice and then broadcast that right here, an eighth of an inch from the eardrum, you greatly increase the clarity of the sound. So the telecoil mode is much better than the microphone mode of where you're using assistive listening. Now that would be true for other assistive listening devices as well. FM and infrared system, they're all good. This has the advantage of using a hearing aid is it's sound that's customized for your own hearing aids. The big advantage is that people will use this. I mean, if they have a hearing aid with a telecoil and all they have to do is tap it, they will tap it. You know, they will use it. Whereas they won't check out systems. That's been our experience anyway. So I thought, you know, well, what's stopping us from bringing this to the United States as a whole? Other countries have it. It's spreading in Northern Europe, Oceania. Why not the United States as well? And so what are some steps we need to take to roll this out in a big way? Well, we need to make most telephones telecoil compatible. That helps give motivation to get telecoils in your hearing aids. That's been done. And thanks partly to the efforts of SHHH, future digital phones are going to be coming available with hearing aid compatible models. Hopefully, eventually, all digital phones. We need to refine the technology to deal with some of the old issues of interference and spillover and so forth. That's been happening. We need to have the example of another country if we're not going to lead. We have the example of Denmark, the United Kingdom as two sample countries. We need some demonstration communities that show that it can work. And Holland, Michigan is certainly one. Rochester, New York is another such, I think, where this is applied on a broad scale. There's been another mandate recently that from the U.S. Access Board that in theaters that you see assistive listening is mandated in all installations with fixed seating for 50 or more people, excepting worship spaces, although most of those will have assistive listening. The new mandate is that 25% of the assistive listening devices available must be neck loops. They must be telecoil compatible, and that's just another step in the right direction in my view, because it makes, again, telecoils even more useful, and thus loop systems ultimately are more useful because you can save all that expense if you just, rather than giving people neck loops, just loop the whole facility and bypass that. Steps to come, including, I think, a requirement that relaxes the requirement for the number of headsets that have to be purchased if a system is looped. Because if half of the hearing aid wearers can receive it directly, then you need half as many of these FM and infrared systems, one would think. Mark Ross has argued that instead of calling these telecoils, we should call them audio coils to emphasize the broader usefulness of this technology. And there's some other technical issues that I won't elaborate. We'd like to take what we're doing in West Michigan, which is now extending to communities around us, including Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is now starting to loop its colleges, churches. A new $250 million convention center is being looped to provide hearing aid compatible access. And we've even, our local state SHHH chapter has recommended that all churches, auditoriums, everything, when they install assistive listening, install hearing aid compatible assistive listening. And there's even been some talk of state legislation that would mandate that and make Michigan a pioneering state. So anyway, I've created a website that, yes?
I'm thinking the audience might want to hear more about those three things. Could you back up to the previous slide?
Yes.
So the three
Yes, okay, yes.
Seven, I think are really important.
Yeah, and you're right, Dana, thank you, because this is an engineering audience to a considerable extent. Well, the first thing was just making sure that, as Mark Ross is advising, the telecoil receptor, it comes with virtually all hearing aids and cochlear implants. It's got to be out there. Secondly, today's technology with telecoils, the orientation of the telecoil affects the quality of the reception. And what's optimal for telephone listening isn't necessarily optimum for assistive listening in a large room, for which a vertical orientation provides the optimum reception. Mine aren't in a vertical orientation, so often I find I have to kind of cock my head slightly. Do you find this too, to get the best reception?
I've seen some people.
Oh,
They
some
get
people
their head
have
forward
to.
in order to use
Yeah.
this.
Now, the technology is now being developed for telecoils that are omnidirectional. They're not directionally affected, and they can receive the magnetic signal regardless of their orientation, as well as power telecoils coming. And I think it's important for audiologists to program hearing aids to have both the telecoil and the mic plus telecoil setting that we talked about earlier, so that you don't have to turn your hearing aids into earplugs if you're to activate the telecoil setting. Yes?
When you're in a really, really noisy environment, that's when you do want to have a telecoil on the
Yes, yes.
Otherwise, you pick up way too much
Right.
noise.
Yeah. So if you're in an airport gate area, for example, if that were looped, it would be helpful to have a telecoil setting, because then, or if I'm on the, if I'm talking on the telephone tonight in an airport, I like being able to turn these into earplugs, just block out sound and only have the broadcast sound from the telephone or the assistive listening. I include a sample of the website that I've created that has a lot of information and the applications to various venues and vendors and the costs of the system and so forth at the back of your page. We use locally, with permission of the National Organization of the Deaf, this logo, which both in our community informs hearing aid wearers of this assistive listening being available, and promotes loop systems and so forth. And I've told SHHH that, why don't they take this over and put their own website address there and make this a sign that, one sees every place across the country, and it's advertisement for the organization as well. This is this Michigan resolution from the Michigan Hard of Hearing Persons Association, recommending that all these venues install assistive listening that broadcasts sound directly through hearing aids. Notice they're not advocating loop systems, and I'm not advocating loop systems. Fundamentally, what I'm advocating is hearing aid compatible assistive listening. Wireless direct broadcast of sound through hearing aids. It's just I can't think of anything that could be done to more greatly improve quality of life for hard of hearing persons. And Marcia Maz, who's the Technical Assistance Coordinator for the U.S. Access Board, says that what Michigan is pushing seems to her to be compatible with the National Americans for Disabilities Act legislation. Just wrapping up here, I think over the next decade that it's not unthinkable that we in the United States could double the usefulness of hearing aids and therefore double the number of people using hearing aids, and thereby diminish the stigma of hearing loss and hearing aids, which would become more like glasses for the ears. If you have vision loss, you deal with it. You have contacts or glasses. If you have hearing loss, you probably don't deal with it. And I think in my community, I'm seeing that happen. I'm seeing more people with hearing aids, and it's just less of something to be embarrassed about. It's more like glasses for the ears. And as that happens, I think support for, the number of people wanting insurance and Medicare support for hearing aids will greatly increase. If you're completely deaf and need a cochlear implant, there's help for the $45,000 or so for a cochlear implant. But if you need $4,000 for hearing aids, there's not help unless your needs are better. How do we change behavior? Now the social psychologist in me comes out. Well, one way to try to change behavior is to admonish people with hearing loss to don't be embarrassed about hearing technology, just use it. And for example, we used to try to, and we still do, admonish traffic safety with Drive Carefully campaigns. Or we could admonish tolerance with brotherhood dinners and diversity training. Or we could promote hearing assistance by telling people to use those assistive listening devices and not be ashamed of their hearing loss. But there's another way to change behavior, and in the long run, it's far more effective, and that's to change the environment. And so, for example, we could build divided highways and mandate seat belts. That's done a lot more than have admonitions to drive carefully. We can desegregate schools and workplaces. And it was when we did that that racial attitudes in the United States sharply changed and bigotry greatly diminished following, for example, the passage of the U.S. Civil Rights Act in 1964. And I think we can change the environment for hard of hearing. We can double the usefulness of hearing aids and install hearing aid compatible assistive listening everywhere. You know, why not at bank teller windows and subway kiosks and airport gate areas and in homes and theaters and places of worship. If we're to do this, then to thinking strategically, by whatever technology, whether it's ultra low power radio frequency technology in the future or today's induction loop system, there are multiple audiences of hearing specialists, hearing aid manufacturers, audio engineers, the hard of hearing themselves, architects and facilities managers, government agencies, the general public that all need to be reached and can be reached through their organizations, their periodicals, and the educational programs that train them. And that would be a multifaceted national initiative that I'm encouraging Terry and Dana to give thought to. Robert Kennedy said, "The future does not belong to those who are content with today, apathetic towards common problems, timid and fearful in the place of new ideas and bold projects. Rather, it belongs to those who can blend vision, reason, and courage in a personal commitment to the ideals and great enterprises of American society." When you think of innovations in the past, they've always been greeted with resistance. The steamboat, which was Fulton's Folly, the printing press, the typewriter, the telephone. One British group said the telephone may be appropriate for our American cousins, but not here because we have an adequate supply of messenger boys. New technology, revolutionary new technology, always gets resisted. But Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." And I see no reason why this can't happen. And at least my resources can be applied to that. Last slide here, I just threw up on the screen because Andrea and I were talking about other uses for transmitting information wirelessly to in-the-ear receivers. Some of the boats in the last America's Cup have been looped so that crew members who are up on the mast or in various places can communicate with each other. And so one can begin to think about other applications, including military applications we were talking about, where you need to communicate to people in a more efficient way than what we do now. Again, that's the website. Well, that's 45 minutes or so, and that leaves us 10 minutes or so for some conversation.
Thank you for a very fascinating talk. Do you have any questions, please? Right.
Why do you think that there is a stigma to hearing loss and not to eye loss? I think there is one, and the only thing I can figure out is that when you don't hear well, you keep telling people to repeat.
Yeah.
That annoys them. When you don't see well, you don't tell them to show up somewhere else or something.
Yeah, and the irony is that if we are self-conscious about hearing aids, probably there's more reason, people more notice if we don't have hearing technology and need it, the social mistakes we make when we misheard people or not heard them. They notice that if only we knew it a lot more than the hearing aids that we're wearing. I'm going to invite Terry and Dana to, if either of them want to respond to this, to do so as well on behalf of their organization, because they deal with this question all the time. But I think one answer is the association of hearing loss with aging. And so, do I seem to you a little older or a little more over the hill or whatever? Do you think less of me because I'm wearing hearing aids? Probably not to the extent to which I worried when I first started using technology. And there's some social psychological research that illustrates this. And what these experiments have done is things like this. They've had people in the laboratory put on a dorky Barry Manilow t-shirt something they felt creepy and embarrassed wearing, and they meet somebody else and they talk to that person, and later when the two separate, they ask the person who was wearing the t-shirt, you know, do you think the other person noticed what, you know, that we had put this t-shirt on you? And most of the people think that the other person noticed and somehow thought less of them. When they asked the other people, did you notice what t-shirt he was wearing? Most never noticed. I mean, but there's a kind of egocentric self-consciousness to people that think that imperfections, their bad hair day or whatever, you know, are sticking out and be noticed to other people, when in fact, you study the other people, they don't notice and they don't care. And so I mean, that would be something for hard of hearing people to be aware of. But Terry or Dana, do you have any thoughts to add? Why the reluctance of people to adopt hearing?
Well, I think some of the research has also
negative.
shown that people think that their hearing loss impacts their ability to function within their environment, whereas vision loss, you can pretty much continue to function with your environment.
Right.
But it's maybe socially or in the
Right.
workplace, that type of thing, your hearing loss impacts that ability.
Sure. And hearing loss is you know, entails social deprivation, as it did for my mother during her years of deafness. I mean, she was profoundly socially isolated, and that's why technology that is being worked on and that you might be working on in the future that can help, keep hard of hearing people in relationships with other people is tremendously significant, because we have a deep need to belong, as social psychologists are saying these days, to connect.
I think that we haven't had many positive images of people with hearing loss in our society. It's usually been negative. So, you see the person going hot or misunderstanding. So it's only natural that people equate being hard of hearing with not being very competent. And I think we need to applaud people for wearing hearing aids or using assistive listening devices as doing something very positive for themselves.
Right.
I think there might be another aspect related to this, namely that people who have vision loss or myopia or whatever, very often they discover it because they have to read on a daily basis. So somehow, at least when I was growing up as a child, a middle-aged man having glasses somehow had to do with scholarliness. And so somehow, it probably is because those who used to read discovered that their vision was failing them.
Right.
And so when they got glasses, they were typically professors or teachers. And so in some sense, there was a positive image of people with glasses. And that sort of took away the sting. And
right.
people were okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. So you mentioned a lot of these assistive listening systems, the loop or low power FM radio. You mostly said good things about them. What are their current limitations? Are there things that people wish they had, which they don't have right now? What features ought to have?
Limitations?
Yes. Meaning, for example, I was just wondering whether, for example, it's a problem to have. You mentioned spilling from one room to another.
Oh, I see.
For example, desirable to have two overlaid rooms.
Oh, yes. Okay. So in situations where, for example, we have side-by-side rooms, and so you want to contain the sound within a room, or maybe you have a courtroom where for security reasons it's important to contain the sound within the room. Sometimes, depending on where the loop is laid, there's sufficiently little spillover except right next to the wall of the other one that is tolerable. But where you really need to create a barrier, again, I'm told here, I'm not the technologist, that they'll lay a second loop along the outside of that, and it will emit a cancellation signal that will cancel the outbound signal and contain the sound within the space.
And has that been worked on stereophonic sound?
On
stereo
sound. Stereo. Yeah, I think that I think, as to my understanding, is not possible because you're broadcasting the same signal to both hearing aids. And now
the bandwidth is very low. I mean, this is AM. Okay. It's on very low frequency.
Now, with the radio frequency, you could potentially send out stereo. Or, what would you have to do? Set the two hearing aids to different bands or something?
Well, you have to come up with a different scheme.
But it could be done.
I think it can be done.
Okay. So you are getting monaural sound. By the way, you also have to worry about sound going up and down potentially. So if you have apartments above one another, I mean, the apartment up here could be broadcasting sound to the one beneath. Now again, nobody's hearing that unless they turn on their telecoil. But in the retirement complex in Holland, where they've installed this, they've been sure that they don't stack, I mean, they don't have competing systems one on top of the other. Another advantage, though, to the little chair loop system, it's the little mini loop system, is it has a very confined area from which the signal is emitted. And so it also obviates that problem. And by the way, metal work, where if you have lots of metal in a building, then that's going to require more power. And this is not a do-it-yourself installation for an amateur, it's a professional installation.
Okay. If we don't have any questions, I'd like to thank our speakers.
Good.
Take it together for them. Let me do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've had a little bit more.
Okay. Thank you, Danny. But Andre wants to take me to the airport, so I very much appreciate it. Thank you very much.